This whole new curriculum has come with another word that's almost synonymous with it now, which is formative assessment. And we as teachers talk about it all the time. You know, we say these days we do formative assessment. If you remember what we did a few lessons ago, we were discussing in more detail the various types of assessments and the forms they could take. And formative assessment, as I said, is one of the types of assessments that really stands out and is really, really important in this new curriculum. But how come it's being mentioned more? How come it's being emphasized more than all the other types of assessment? Remember, as we said, the other types of assessments are important. All these types of assessments are important, and as I said earlier, again, they can be used interchangeably. You know, 1 minute it could be formative, the other minute the thing you're doing could be summative in nature. But how come we're emphasizing on formative assessment more than anything else? So first, remember what formative assessment is. It's assessment for learning. Formative, formation, okay? We are helping people to form the knowledge and the skills that is required of them, okay? The competencies required of them. We are assessing in order to help them to develop the knowledge and skills that we need out of them. That's the first thing about formative assessment. The other very important thing about formative assessment that you need to know is that there's a wide range of formal and informal techniques that you can use to give formative assessment. And I really believe that's where the power of formative assessment lies. So what's an informal technique? An informal technique is, let's say, a technique that has not been previously agreed upon. Okay, let's define it that way. And it can be anything. It can be that you like asking people questions, you know, just like that, and they talk. The bottom line behind all assessment, once again, is it is a process of record keeping. So even if it's informal, how do you keep the records? So that you can follow. Even if it's formal methods basically sort of give us a format of keeping the records, but informal methods don't give us a format. We decide for ourselves what the format is. The point that I'm trying to make is that I'm encouraging you to use informal methods as long as you can keep records, or use formal methods because they define to you how you can keep the records. And there are very many types. I can even read to you from this curriculum document, the ones proposed by KICD. They propose several, and really this is not what you should be limited to. These are just examples. They propose observations and observation schedules. So an observation schedule tells you how you should observe and what you should observe, gives you some kind of a format. Checklists, you know, you can do a checklist. So you're given like a checklist format to use. Rating scales, you can say scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 5 stars, whatever it is. Questionnaires, projects, you know, especially in a formative, in a competency-based education setup. Projects are amazing. You give kids a project to do. You come and assess the project and see how far they are. Journals is really more of a self-assessment for the kids, but you give them a format to keep writing their journals. Portfolios, I think you have heard about this also a bit more. You've heard of formative assessments and you've heard of portfolios a lot, okay? And portfolios really is a collection of students' work, okay? You see this a lot, people who do photography and other things, you know, people normally ask you, show me your portfolio. It's basically, what's the collection of work that you've done as some kind of evidence that you really are what you say you are. Okay, so that's what portfolios are. Once again, it's a way of assessing students, okay? And if I could ask you a question, maybe we can debate this. Is a portfolio a formative or a summative assessment? Okay? It's one of those things which, once again, depends. As I said earlier, have an open mind, be flexible when you're thinking about these things, okay? Because a portfolio, if you look at a portfolio at the end of the term and you make a judgment based on what you're seeing in the portfolio, that becomes summative. But the same portfolio, you can use it as formative. As I said, assessment, what makes an assessment what it is the intentions of it. I digress. Question and answer is another type of formative assessment technique. Profiling, anecdotal records. An anecdote is some kind of a funny story. A bit of an example from a long time ago. There is an anecdotal record of James Orengo. I think we all know James Orengo, the senator from Siaya. When he was in high school, there are very many anecdotal records written about him. So records about his behavior, records about the things he used to do. And one famous example is where he poured water on the seat that the teacher was to use. And when the teacher comes to sit, they get wet, so people laugh. And, I don't know, some people call that indiscipline. But those who kept the records, that kind of a record is an anecdotal record. And once again, these anecdotal records can be formal or informal, depending on how you choose to look at them. Okay? It can be a formal way of formative assessment or an informal way of formative assessment. I don't want you to be confused by me not having a stand. Okay? In me saying that it can be formal, it can be informal, it can be summative, it can be formative. Don't worry about me. The most important thing is, how do you understand it? How are you reflecting on it? What's the intention behind your assessing? Okay? So that focus on formative assessment is simply because of everything that I've just told you right now. It offers a lot of possibilities for us to be able to assess students. And one of the other techniques that I haven't mentioned is rubrics, assessment rubrics. This, once again, after journals, is the other thing that you're very familiar with, I'm assuming. And assessment rubrics, once again, are a very interesting way of assessing students in a formal way, because rubrics basically give us a scale to assess people by. So that is the reason why we really emphasize on formative assessments in this competency-based assessment framework, in Kenya's competency-based assessment framework. It's simply because of the possibilities that it gives. It opens up a lot of opportunity for us to be able to give feedback to students and to be able to record what's happening. Remember, assessment is a process of documenting, and formative assessments give us the possibility to document things in a whole range of ways. Anecdotal records about children pouring water on teachers in the staff room, all the way to rubrics. Okay? The whole range, journals in between, questions and answers, everything. As long as it's a way we can document how a student is learning. So that is why formative assessments are more celebrated and they're more focused on in the new curriculum than anything else.